Hi guys, Catherine here. I hope you've all had an absolutely fantastic weekend. As you can see, we have gone back to the videos on a Wednesday, so make sure you guys are subscribed and turned on those push notifications so you know exactly when I upload my videos. And why not give this video a big thumbs up. To those of you who have come back to this channel, thank you so much for coming back. I absolutely love to see all of your comments each week, and it's really fantastic to see all of your support. And if you're new, welcome. It's so good to have you here. Why not join the crew as well, and make sure you pop down your quote of the week in the comments section below. But we'll get into the quote of the week later. So before this video begins, I would like to say that this video will contain some triggers for people in relation to depression and anxiety. This is going to be a very raw story time in relation to my mental health journey. So if you do find any of this video uncomfortable, please feel free to click off of this video and click on another video, or alternatively click off altogether. If you do wish to stay until the end, thank you so much. However, there is absolutely no pressure to. Thank you. So today's video, I wanted to be a bit of an open book to you guys. I've often spoken about mental health and also spoken about different elements to my mental health. However, I've not exactly explained the story as such. So I wanted to do a bit of a story time series where I talk to you about different parts of my mental health journey, and where better to start than right at the very beginning. First of all, I need to give you a bit of background. Now, when I was a young girl, I was really sociable, I was really bubbly, and I mean, I'm pretty much still the same in that respect. I didn't let many things faze me, and dare I say, I lived in quite an idyllic world. Everything was tickety-boo. I lived in a really fantastic house with a great family, and I was privileged enough to be able to go on lovely holidays and really enjoy my childhood, and I was very lucky to have all of that. Not many things in my life, you would say, would naturally assume would give someone depression or anxiety or any kind of mental health condition. I was in a happy family, or what I thought was a happy family. As you grow up, you have different pressures of life, and as I went through school, yeah, I got bullied, but it never really knocked my confidence in any sense. I was bullied about being really skinny. I was bullied about not being quite popular. I was a bit weird, but I hung around with lots of different people. I was never really attached to a particular group as such. I was quite happy to go and talk to anyone, no matter what social clique they were part of. I wouldn't say school was my love, but I certainly loved being around people and spending time with my friends and learning different things. I actually really enjoyed learning different things. I wasn't very good at maths, and I struggled a lot with maths. However, I had some amazing teachers that really helped me on my way. So I was very lucky to have support where I needed it throughout school as I was growing up. Again, nothing that would necessarily spark depression or anxiety, and don't get me wrong, the pressures in school today, I'm not surprised that there are a lot of people that are extremely anxious about things. I know that when it came to tests, I hated tests because tests inevitably led to bad results, because mocks, in my opinion, were downgraded. And then when it actually came down to the actual exam, the real exam, they actually turned out okay. So I never really let education bother me or my mental health in any particular way. In fact, I found things outside of my house quite calming and comforting, and a bit of an escape. My mental health started to deteriorate when I was 13 or 14 years old. Like most families in the UK and around the world, sometimes there comes a time where a marital relationship splits up, and my world got turned upside down because that was exactly what happened. Everything that I thought was real wasn't real, and I had the life that I had was gone. It was no longer. And as a pubescent teenager, trying to get a grip of my emotions and my hormones and where I fitted in society, to then have to figure out where I was at home and how that new dynamic worked, was huge. The change overnight was, for me at that age, completely shocking. My whole world had fell apart, and so did I, bit by bit, every day. At first, I was very angry, and I have two ways of being angry. One way, I react by being quite outwardly angry to people. I would be quite annoyed, frustrated. I would project my anger on other people by arguing or getting confrontational, which was completely unlike me. And in other ways, I went completely inside myself and wouldn't say a word. I went silent, like the silent treatment that I gave everyone, the silent treatment. And it just depended on the day and who I was with and what was happening in my environment that negotiated, in my mind, whether I was going to be externally angry or internally angry. I ended up bottling up a lot. It affected, I would say that it affected my studies. I would say my home situation started to affect me socially and also educationally. I actually started to struggle with concentrating in school. I couldn't cope in a room full of people. I actually suddenly found myself to be quite stressed when surrounded by people. I hated when people would ask me if I was okay, because to me that lit a fire, and it meant that I couldn't control the emotion that was about to come out, and that usually ended up in me crying hysterically because I couldn't put into words how I felt. And the anger I felt at the time boiled over to the point where all I could do was cry because I was so angry. And I'm sure loads of women especially can relate that you can't even speak, but sometimes you cry when you're angry because you can't find the words to express that anger. So you end up crying. It's not because you're extremely upset, you just cry. And don't get me wrong, at the time I was devastated. I had so much going through my head, and I couldn't juggle it all. It all became too much for me, and I started to, like I say, act up. And again, that was completely unlike me. I started answering people back, and I liked, before I would get on with my day. I would still be quite vocal, but I wouldn't react negatively. I started to be quite bitter at home. I lost a lot of the relationship I had with my parents because I needed to be strong. I needed to be strong for my younger sibling. I needed to be strong in front of my parents because I didn't want to show that I was hurt or upset, even though I was. And my parents completely could see through the fact that I was completely devastated. it was a very odd time in my life where I was walking through a world I was still trying to grasp, and not knowing if there was ever going to be an end to that. Back then I described it as if I'd been thrown into a pit, and I could see a rope at the top of this pit, but I couldn't get to that rope. I couldn't climb that rope at the time, and it was dark and wet, and there just didn't seem like a possibility of reaching that end, even though I'd seen other people go through it. And I remember feeling extremely guilty for feeling the way I was feeling, to the degree I was feeling it, knowing that, you know, other people had gone through the same or similar and had not had the same reaction as I had had. So I remember feeling very guilty, and I couldn't speak out. I couldn't tell people what was going on, and I had to keep it inside myself, and I had to bottle it up, and that there was almost a shame to it. You know, it's got to the point where I became very angry, and I remember my head of year at the time at my school, he was the only one that knew of my home situation and how it was affecting me, and I have to take my hat off to him. He was amazing in dealing with this different side to me that no one had seen before, and he would check up on me all the time and make sure that I was okay and that I was getting time to actually work on my schoolwork. And he suggested at one point that I would probably benefit from seeing a counsellor, and I said, well, don't people with mental issues see a counsellor? I don't need to see a counsellor. I don't have mental issues. I don't have mental issues. Like I don't need to see a counsellor. And at this point, it had gotten pretty bad in my beginning journey. I wasn't speaking to people at home. I would go upstairs, go straight to my room. I was being quite vicious to family members, immediate family members. It was very much directed at my immediate family members. And I struggled to get out of bed, and I would attempt to paint on this picture of I was okay to everyone else. And I was exhausted from painting on this facade and pretending like I was okay. And there was a point over a Christmas period that it had gotten too much for me, and I actually had a conversation with my mum saying that I was really struggling, and I didn't know what was happening, and I needed support, but I didn't know how. And I remember apologising that I couldn't be stronger, and I remember it was a very raw conversation between me and my mum, because she had a lot going on for herself, and I didn't want to burden her with that. And I remember her saying to me that she had actually spoken to my head of year. My head of year had called ahead to my mum to pre-warn her of the negative and deteriorating behaviours at school, and suggested that she try and speak to me over the Christmas break to convince me that I needed to speak to a counsellor, that I needed to have an escape and a route to vent and let off steam that was healthy and positive, that would allow me to let off a little bit of steam, to allow other things to come into my world, where at the time my world was surrounded by this dense cloud of negativity, and to me the world was ending, and I couldn't get myself out of it. And I found, like I said, group situations completely stressful. And to me, I love being around people, and to me, being then anxious to be around people was quite unnerving for me. So being able to have that conversation with my mum and say, maybe I do need to speak to someone, that was the tipping point for me to start my journey to wellness again. And that is the conclusion of today's part 1 of my mental health story time. There is a lot more to come. This is only the beginning. I started having mental health issues when I was 13, 14 years old, and I'm now 24. So that's 10 years worth of story time to go through. So make sure you do stick around. I hope that if some of this resonates with you, that you are okay. And if you do need to speak to someone, I will link two charities, two UK-based charities in the description below that you can get in touch with should you feel like you need to talk to someone urgently. If you do have any reason to want to seek any further help, any regular further help, I would 100% recommend getting in touch with your doctor, GP, and speaking to them about your best options in relation to starting your mental health journey. And as per usual, we will continue to end this video on a positive note with our hashtag Wellness Wednesdays, hashtag quote of the week. This week's quote of the week comes from Bilal G2. So hello Bilal. Hashtag quote of the week. You've got to get up every morning with determination if you're going to go to bed with satisfaction. I think that's so amazing. I am actually going to use that every morning when I wake up. I'm actually going to read that to myself every morning because I think that is such a great affirmation, and 100% I totally agree with it. So thank you so much, Bilal, for your quote of the week. If you like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and remember to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you know as and when I upload my videos. And as per usual, I will be available for the first 30 minutes once a video has been uploaded, so you guys can converse with me directly. However, I will do my very best to answer all of your comments throughout the week. Make sure if you want to shout out in next week's video that you comment your hashtag quote of the week in the comment section below, and make sure that you are subscribed and have turned on your push notifications as well. And make sure you hashtag that quote of the week so that way I can find your quote of the week really easily. So that is it for today. Have an absolutely amazing week. I cannot wait to speak to you next week. And yeah, take care of yourselves.
Things that weigh me down, 'cause in the echo of your